doing exactly?
Ah yes, the classic ask my handler what the hell I am doing while on location. I think my character graduated from the Spy Hard School of Espionage. We are in for a bumpy ride. What happened is the question burning in the back of my mind after 40-something hours. I had huge hopes for this game, but after finishing one session, those hopes were replaced by boredom and frustration. Frustration which mainly comes from the fact that this title is a 1 step forward, 7 steps backwards sort of affair. Creative Forge proved they were quite competent developers with their previous game, Hard West, which I enjoyed greatly. In terms of evolution, going from Hard West to Phantom Doctrine makes sense. That game used the 2-point action system popularized by the new XCOM series while adding different elements on top. Phantom Doctrine, well...
Negative damage.
Enemy asset eliminated.
This time around, they straight up made a spy-themed new XCOM style game. The player begins by making a main character, choosing one out of 3 backgrounds and starting their hunt for the mysterious organization known as Beholder. On a macro scale, you move agents across the globe, manage the hideout and investigate locations to prepare for missions against enemy agents. Said missions representing the micro part of the game, with a stealth preamble setting the stage for when bullets go flying. All in all, it is what most people would expect when presented with Cold War XCOM. If I could only stop there. Visually, I have to say they did a commendable job while clearly not having a AAA budget. The costumes worn by police officers are authentic, there are small details like desks having perpetuum mobiles on them, and they even managed to create 3D models for every single weapon in the game. The aesthetic sold me on the theme, something which the writing utterly failed to do. Dialogue is bare bones in the worst way, plus the cheap voice acting doesn't help in the least. Listen to this conversation after I saved an information broker in exchange for info on one of the evil conspiracy's major plots.
Thanks for getting me out of there, but it wasn't just courtesy, was it?
MI6 is expecting a delivery of some hot contraband. We want it. The other guys want it too.
Sorry, mate. Best I can do is call in some favors and tell you where to find it.
That's all I need.
That's it, and it is reflective of the entire game. Characters barely have more than 2 or 3 lines, no matter how important the moment. It feels like exposition delivered in the laziest way possible. There's also the arrogant decision to have the story divided into 2 modes, normal and extended. I can only imagine they did this because they wanted to have more things for a player to uncover throughout different sessions, but normal is insufficient, making extended the proper way to play. Unfortunately, that requires 2 playthroughs. The storyline of Phantom Doctrine is convoluted but rather linear. Things move clearly from A to B, it just isn't clear what A or B are. This is compounded by the fact that the story context and gameplay are out of sync on more than one occasion. For example, the plot starts with a shipment belonging to Beholder being intercepted by the British Navy. In the Russian campaign, the player takes the role of KGB agent Kodiak that is sent to take out a traitor. This leads Kodiak on the organization's trail. Eventually, the agent gets the blessings of his higher-ups to create a rogue unit to investigate Beholder. But from the moment the first mission is done, the gameplay of running a secret organization is fully unlocked. It isn't until 5 hours into the game at the end of Chapter 1 that the gameplay is properly contextualized by the narrative. Until then, it makes very little sense. There are also such divisions in the smaller details, like the fact that you have a rainbow coalition of agents from different backgrounds that would probably never work with each other. Or that your super spy organization needs to find contacts to buy guns and other mundane equipment that you can just purchase legally in many countries. While this may seem insignificant, keep in mind that the immersion and theming should have been one of the major focuses here. The core gameplay is taken from another series, so if you're going to make Cold War XCOM, you'd better nail the Cold War part. Creative Forge failed to do this, and keep in mind, I am theoretically the target audience for this game. I play tactical games, like the new XCOM to various degrees, and have knowledge of the theme. Hell, my favorite 1v1 board game is Twilight Struggle. Fun fact, one of the designers of that game was Ananda Gupta, which will go on to be the senior designer on the 2012 XCOM reboot, which revived the genre and later brought us Phantom Doctrine. It's all connected, man. So that begs the question, are Creative Forge's gameplay modifications to the XCOM formula able to carry Phantom Doctrine on their own? Let's find out. The end-all be-all of map management is agents. They move to investigate locations or counter enemy activity while also being used at HQ for various tasks. The map gets progressively bigger as the main story unfolds, which means more agents are needed to cover different areas since events are time-sensitive. While the macro flow of the game seems fine on the surface, there is a certain abstraction that trivializes any significant gameplay decision. With the exception of those currently traveling, any agent can be used for any mission no matter where they are located. This is completely counterintuitive game logic when taking into account the fact that doing recon actually requires 2 agents to be present at the location. It also makes map management a moot point since you're going to have your combat team that stays at the base doing base activities, ready to teleport into action at a moment's notice. What I find baffling is that this abstracted teleportation completely goes against an entire system called heat. Agents that get seen during missions accumulate heat, which means ambushes on the world map. Unfortunately, the instantaneous teleportation is not affected by heat, so your combat-oriented agents can stay at your base and completely ignore it. What was the point? There is also a global counterpart to heat called danger. It accumulates over time with various actions until the base is discovered. If this happens, you must flee to a new base but lose some agents in the process. The solution to this is to relocate to a new base early, which costs a lot of money. So basically, you inevitably accumulate heat, relocate, rinse and repeat. It feels like I am paying my taxes rather than being tracked by a menacing global conspiracy, since all it requires of the player is to throw money at a problem. Not exactly exciting. As for the base management itself, things are pretty straightforward. You can have agents improve, heal, make cash or get intel. Which is fine, this is basic genre stuff and it's done competently. However, the novel aspects are investigations and mind control. Investigations revolve around finding documents and putting them together to solve the identity of a code word. Each document you find comes with keywords, though some need to be deciphered. After that, you get to do the crazy conspiracy board shtick, where you link pieces of evidence with coinciding keywords, which will eventually lead to a discovery. This is an okay minigame that has no business being a main feature in a 40-hour strategy game. It mimics the act of putting together evidence in a satisfying way, but without involving any real decision making. One thing that makes it even worse is that the evidence for each case is randomized, which means that trying to tie in all the info with the main narrative is a pointless endeavor. This is a huge missed opportunity. It could have fleshed out the world more, but as it stands, it is just connecting words to each other. Actually, the investigation system can even be a detriment to the immersion, since main plot characters have their code words thrown into the pool of random possibilities. This results in documents which say that Valhalla, the main villain, which isn't really a spoiler, hangs around hot dog stands trying to spy upon people. Now, onto the other novel-based element, mind control. MK Ultra was a CIA program to test the possibility of mind control through various means, and Phantom Doctrine allows you to run your own morally questionable program. You can brainwash agents, let them go so they suicide into their base, have trigger words that makes it so they join you during combat, etc. Fun stuff. I have to say that this is the moment where Phantom Doctrine potentially shines. It is a unique system that allows plenty of interactions with both your own and enemy agents, since the antagonists can also send you sleeper agents. Unfortunately, it is too ignorable. Every agent comes with a set of secret perks that can be uncovered. Until then, they present a potential threat. In practice, all that matters is your A-team that goes into combat. For example, I found a sleeper agent early in my session, and I did absolutely nothing. After all, their effect only triggers when in combat situations. Getting rid of that betrayer perk costs money and time, so I just decided to keep that agent doing map activities. No harm, no foul. That's kind of the problem here. The MK Ultra facility is not an integral part of the gameplay loop of Phantom Doctrine. It gives you more rewards and can make things easier, but it is non-essential outside a few story instances. I have to say though, the way the game introduces this system is baffling. At first, captured enemy agents are instantly interrogated and killed, but after the player builds the MK Ultra facility, the gameplay loop is completely changed. The player needs to interrogate them first and then potentially execute. This costs extra time, money, and more danger if you have more captured agents than facility slots. This is anti-game design. The player executes an action that is supposed to be an upgrade, then the rug gets pulled from under them for no good reason. There are a slew of forum posts that advise postponing the construction of the facility for this reason. Top-notch work. At any rate, I have spoken enough about the game's macro components. Now let's look at the micro, the missions. Each mission starts with the player deciding an entry point and later on an extraction point that might be different. The gameplay begins proper with a stealth section where civilians and guards will let you roam unless they see something suspicious, such as a body or trespassing in forbidden areas. The main objective in each mission revolves around either finding/capturing an NPC or retrieving an object. Beyond that, there is also loot and security terminals that disable cameras or detection lasers. That's pretty much it really in terms of non-combat mechanics, and all of it is trivialized by disguises. Each mission can be scouted beforehand, which reveals the map and also allows for disguised agents. These agents begin the game directly inside rather than spawning at the entry point. Their big advantage being that they don't trigger an alarm if they get seen trespassing since they infiltrated the location, except for enemy agents, which apparently are perceptive enough to notice. In fact, if you take out too many guards, the enemy agents will start wandering around the map, turning on cameras and destroying loot. But it is also a huge advantage since they can easily be caught out of position. Making agents leave heavily guarded rooms through this tactic is actually recommended. The point is that stealth gives you a free hand to abuse the melee attack that one-shots enemies with lower health or any silenced weapons you might have. So much of a mission turns on this aspect of the stealth gameplay that difficulty is centered around it. You have the option to dispose of corpses by going through this way too long animation and poof, the body has magically disappeared. Well, on the highest difficulty, this option is disabled. I first thought this was no big deal because picking up bodies exists. Specifically, there are enemy agents on every map, and if they get knocked out with a melee attack, they can be carried to the extraction point and later on interrogated. Well, this option simply does not exist for normal enemies. Where you kill them is where they stand. This is the most aggravating and inelegant type of game design, where the designer clearly trampled through any sort of player intuition and previously established game logic to solve a problem. And that is not even the worst part here. The repetition is what kills this game dead in its tracks. Missions are intensely samey since stealth is by far the superior option compared to combat. If you never get discovered, then you did a better job than if you did. But clearing the map in stealth mode is identical across all mission types, which are disable the enemy agent, save the friendly agent, interact with object, or kill all enemies. Now you're probably wondering, Ludo, there must be moments when stealth fails. What about the combat? You haven't said anything about it. There must be some complexity. Oh, there is, don't worry, in fact quite a lot. Stats, items, support abilities, specializations, and a slew of guns. None of it matters. I'll show you why with the following two situations. I place all my characters in position to wipe out half the enemies. I get seen after that, but since it was during the enemy's turn, I get to shoot again, with everyone out of position. This free turn allows me to finish the job and kill everyone. Situation 2. I get so bored of stealth that I gear up for war and shoot on the first round, completely ignoring any effort to conceal myself. I overwatch sweep from room to room and I bum rush anyone hiding behind cover when they dug in. Easy win, even with one of my agents betraying me. The major culprit behind all these systemic problems is the action points. Every character has two sets of points, blue for movement and orange for activation/shooting. Each blue point allows for a variable number of squares to be traversed, depending on the agent, but it is usually in the 7 to 10 range. The issue is that maps are usually 40 by 40 squares to 60 by 60. Now imagine you can spend all your movement points and still shoot. The result is that every character can more or less threaten a third of the map on any given round. Think of the map as a square, then the threat range of each agent as a circle. You get the idea. Some powerful weapons, such as snipers or LMGs, require both types of points to use, but most enemies can still be taken out by 2 agents with weaker weapons. The lethality is through the roof. The end result is that you will get a drop on enemies from half a map away while they do the same to you. However, you have an advantage: determinism, which was taken from Hard West. There, each character had a luck stat. The more they had, the less chance there was to get hit, but every missed shot reduced the luck by the hit chance of the attack. This made every shot count. Missing a 99% attack didn't feel so bad, since you most likely wiped out all the enemy's luck, guaranteeing a hit next time. Also note that luck was used for special abilities. It made for some interesting trade-offs, and overall, the game was more about damage mitigation over damage avoidance. It was unique. Phantom Doctrine takes this system, naming it Awareness, and doing one fatal change. Rather than the hit chance of the opponent affecting how much luck one loses when they avoid a shot, now there is a dodge stat that dictates how much awareness is lost per shot. This gives agents much more leeway, to the point that towards the end of the game, you are most likely matrix dodging bullets down hallways. Combined with the fact that most enemies don't even have awareness, and you have a recipe for disaster. Looking back, the whole combat system feels more like controlling a squad of Agent 47s rather than an espionage unit. Invisible Ink does this so much better, and arguably so does a game like Monaco. Hell, even Commandos from 20 years ago felt more accurate to the concept of specialists infiltrating a location. To be honest, Phantom Doctrine feels far closer to a turn-based isometric version of Rainbow Six more than anything else, with its methodical clearing while undetected and lethal shooting. I don't think that is what they were going for. And that brings us back to where we began. 1 step forward, 7 steps backwards. I wouldn't say I have malicious feelings towards the devs, even though I spent a pretty penny on this game and didn't get much out of it. I can honestly say I wouldn't have finished it if not for this video. This game's problems don't really come from a lack of budget or technical execution. It is a completed product made from a fundamentally flawed design document whose decent parts are taken from another series. What Creative Forge added on top was a slew of counterintuitive mechanics and thoughtless interactions. Is it a terrible game? For me, yes, since I know the genre and this is treading old ground while having inexcusable mistakes. If you haven't played any game in this style or really want more new XCOM from any sorts, then you might have a better experience. As for me, I'll hope that Creative Forge recovers and this whole game is forgotten as an accident. They can make excellent games, they did it once, here's hoping for a second time.